On everyone, thank you for coming to watch. I've got guys an update on a very active stretch of severe weather that is currently underway across the Midwest. This is going to continue to push off to the east and it will begin to impact parts of the Northeast tomorrow, where we have a very rare but a very high-end tornado threat in the Northeast tomorrow. I've got all the details coming right up. All right, so thank you all for joining me here on this. What is it? It is a Saturday evening. All right, we have a lot to talk about in this video. As you can see, our radar is pretty active right now. You can see we do have a pretty big stretch of severe weather kind of going all the way from southern Wisconsin down through Missouri. We've been dealing with some very strong tornadoes. We did have 2 PDS tornadoes today, particularly dangerous situation tornadoes, all right, that have ripped through portions of Wisconsin. But this is the main line that we're talking about, and basically what we're talking about is just embedded tornadoes and spin-ups inside of this line, and even some supercellular looking storms back down here into Iowa and perhaps even as far south as northern Missouri. We could definitely still have some tornadoes with a ongoing tornado threat overnight, so that's definitely something to watch out for. But other than that, it's been pretty quiet today, but we did have a little, severe weather event out there in the Northeast. We did have a few severe thunderstorms out in Connecticut and Massachusetts, some very gusty winds and some small hail at that, but still some, strong to severe storms out here into southern New England and into upstate New York. We did already have a few severe thunderstorm warnings up into upstate New York, so a pretty active day for both the Midwest and the Northeast, but all of this in the Midwest is going to kind of shift over to the Northeast, and by tomorrow afternoon, we're going to see a big-time tornado threat evolve over this area, and we're going to break that down coming right up, all right? So we're going to move over here to our alerts, and you can see that, so as of right now, filming this video, it doesn't look as active, but the Northeast is going to be filled up once again with alerts, but it's not going to be the heat. So starting out here in the Midwest, you can see in this pink sheet, we do have a severe thunderstorm watch that is going out for areas of northern Illinois into portions of southeastern Iowa and northern Missouri. So there you go. You do have a threat for at least a few, severe thunderstorm warnings, a few severe thunderstorms out there in areas all the way down to perhaps northern Missouri. And yes, some of those could definitely be tornado producers. So that's just something to be aware of tonight. If you're in the pink shade, that is where you're included in the severe thunderstorm watch. All right, you have a big cluster of storms moving through southern Wisconsin right now. So that's why you have all the flood alerts and stuff, a lot of flash flood warnings out there. But then look at this, along the I-95 corridor, we do have a pretty broad heat advisory. All right, so that's going out for areas all the way from really northern Connecticut all the way down along the I-95 corridor. This does include areas towards the coast of Virginia, eastern Virginia there in the orange shade. That's where you have the heat advisory. And you can see also in the pink shade that's going out for areas of central and southern New Jersey. That is an excessive heat warning, okay? So that's when we're dealing with heat index that could definitely get up to over 105. Okay, so that's for pretty extreme heat that we've got ongoing there. But definitely areas along the coast are going to stay steamy this weekend. You can see also areas towards the panhandle of Florida in the orange shade. That's where you also have another heat advisory. Same thing for you guys into far western Tennessee, northwestern Mississippi, also areas of Arkansas and isolated areas of northeastern Oklahoma. It's just downright hot out there, but you do have some heat returning to California here, the valleys of California, especially Southern California there, baking there, especially near the Los Angeles area, the big cities out there in Southern California. Excessive heat warnings in the pink shade, or I guess purple, I should say, and then in the orange shade you're dealing with a heat advisory. All right, so other than this, I mean, other than that, it's just pretty much quiet for the rest of the country. I mean, you do have a flood watch going out for northern Michigan, but that should expire by the time you watch this video, because I know a lot of you watch my videos the morning prior to when this video comes out. But you could see, we also do have some red flag warnings up into northern Oregon and into portions of Washington State. All right, so that's going to wrap it up with your alerts. And before we get into the breakdown, I just want to show you guys this. So today, the Doppler on Wheels, which is basically just, a team of tornado chasers, I guess you could say, that have these really special trucks that have Doppler radars mounted on the back of them. And basically, what they do is they drive next to or up to, I guess, a storm that is producing a tornado, and they collect and gather radar data to estimate how strong the winds of a tornado are. Okay, so these are very helpful with tornado rating and just trying to figure out how strong each tornado is. And they issued today or I guess they didn't issue, but they wrote a post here on X, and they said, as the 2024 best field season ends, which is pretty crazy that they said that, the 2024, which they marked as the best field season ends. So basically what they're saying is that it's the best storm chasing season yet. A glimpse into the data collection during the Greenfield, Iowa tornado. Peak wind speeds as high as 309 to 318 miles per hour were calculated in a narrow region, 100 to 160 feet. ARL, I'm not sure what that means, guys. Apologize about that. But these winds are among the highest wind speeds ever determined using DOW data. And so this basically means that the Greenfield tornado, based off of what the Doppler on Wheels Doppler radar estimated, that means that the Greenfield, Iowa tornado was the strongest tornado in history. All right, I mean that's crazy. I mean, it's mind blowing that this tornado, based off of this radar data, was stronger than all those famous tornadoes, the El Reno, the Bridge Creek Moore tornado. All those tornadoes were weaker than this, because of this data that came out. So once again, peak wind speeds as high as 309 to 318 miles per hour. You heard me right. And if this is true, I mean, this is it's insane. I mean, this is, as of right now, this is rated EF4. And, when you go to look to rate tornadoes, you look at the damage that, the tornadoes cause. And so, I think we had two storm surveys done in Greenfield, and they estimated that this was a high-end EF4. But I'll tell you guys, if rating tornadoes was based off of wind speeds, then this would easily be an EF5, and this may actually be changed to an EF5. We're just gonna see what happens, but I just wanted to show you guys this because this is absolutely mind blowing. And yes, if this data is true, that this was the Greenfield, Iowa tornado was the strongest tornado in history. All right, so we're gonna go over now to the Midwest. We're just gonna take a look at what's been going on throughout this evening. We're gonna get into what's gonna be happening tonight. As you can see, this was as of 4 p.m. This is 5 p.m. actually, 6 p.m. Excuse me. This was 6 p.m. today in the Midwest. You can see we had a pretty nasty line of storms that was starting to build from southern Wisconsin down through Iowa. This had tornadoes popping off all day. Just back and forth between Iowa and Wisconsin. We've been dealing with tornadoes, but the strongest of tornadoes have been in Wisconsin. You can see we have a very discrete environment as these storms began to erupt. All right, you can see these storms weren't strong enough to really produce any strong tornadoes by 6 p.m., but really after the dinner time frame, that's when things really got started, and we had a lot of tornado warning cells as these storms approached southern Wisconsin. It was just something about southern Wisconsin, probably about the wind shear. We had a lot of wind shear going up there. We did have some very moist dew point temperatures, so some pretty moist levels out there in southern Wisconsin, if that makes sense, and some very intense wind shear, so that's going to result in some tornadoes. That's what we saw today. So this continues into tonight, and this line of storms kind of breaks apart, but you can see, with the leftovers of the line, we do get a pretty strong damaged wind gust, right? That does impact the areas that are currently under the severe thunderstorm watch, going out for really southern Wisconsin down through eastern Iowa, and then stretching into northern Missouri. But this will slowly break apart, and parts of it will fizzle out. I mean, you still got kind of four sections. I'll show you guys. I mean, this one out here that's moving into Michigan as of the middle of the night tonight. That's midnight. All right, this one near Chicago. This little cluster of strong to severe storms, and then this one does look like a mini QLCS trying to set up here across central Illinois. That's going to be pushing south. We'll have to watch that for you guys out there. If you're in any counties, to the if you're in any counties to the east of really dead central Illinois, then you could definitely be dealing with a slight damaging wind gust threat tonight if this, kind of situation plays out. But we have another potential damaging wind gust maker here across north central sections of Missouri. So a lot of separate areas to watch for, different hazards. I do think that there's going to be a slightly higher tornado threat with these storms because, they look a little bit more discreet to me. Overall, just not a very high tornado threat at all getting into the rest of tonight because we're really going to see the environment be overwhelmed by what the storms did today. But definitely a very high end damage wind gust threat for these two down here into Illinois and into Missouri. So just something to keep in mind as we get into tonight. And then we'll take this out to the very early morning hours of tomorrow morning. It all kind of just fizzles out as this low pressure system kind of moves through and is centered over the Great Lakes here. So some, showers and thunderstorms will continue through this morning. Some non-severe storms, maybe one or two special weather statements, something like that, but nothing too crazy out there into Wisconsin and into Michigan as we get past midnight. And then here's a little cluster of storms moving south of St. Louis, but once again, nothing really to worry about as the most of the line will be kind of fizzling out. And this storm will continue to move off to the east, and then we'll switch our focus over to the northeast. But first, we're going to move on here to our SPC outlook, and you can see this is for tomorrow. We have an enhanced risk for severe weather popped up here in the northeast. The SPC really just jumped the gun quickly and put out this enhanced risk. This is including areas of southern Vermont, New Hampshire. That's in the orange shade. That's level 3 to 5 risk. That does include areas of upstate New York. I mean, usually you do not expect an enhanced risk out there in the northeast, but with this kind of setup, this is what we have. Usually you're talking about enhanced risks out in the plains and Tornado Alley, but no, we're seeing enhanced risks in the northeast. And so we have Troy, New York, Pittsfield, Massachusetts, Concord, New Hampshire, Keene, New Hampshire, and Greenfield, Massachusetts, all in an enhanced risk. Cities that you probably have never heard of as far as cities that would be an enhanced risk. I mean, yeah, upstate New York definitely gets a few severe weather events as of also with the hills of western PA. But I mean, interior Northeast, especially on the coastline, towards the coastline, almost never get any enhanced risk. But that's what we have for tomorrow. All right, and then you can see we have a slight risk surrounding all of that. That's level 2 out of 5 risk in the yellow shade. That includes areas pretty much down the coastline here near the I-95 corridor into portions of the interior Northeast. That includes a much higher populated area, including New York City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Boston, Washington, D.C., all the major cities up along the I-95 corridor. But that's in the yellow shade. That's level 2 out of 5 slight risk. And then in the marginal risk, that's a level 1 out of 5 risk in the dark green shade. You also do have another marginal risk for northwestern Kansas, southwestern areas of Nebraska, and also areas of northwest North Dakota and northeast Montana. All right, so tornado threat. Look at this. This enhanced risk is driven off by a 10% tornado threat. Yes, you heard me right, a 10% tornado threat. You may be thinking like, okay, now you're joking with me. This is definitely in the plans. This is just like an old SPC outlook, but no. This is for tomorrow. We have a 10% risk for tornadoes out there in southern Vermont, New Hampshire for tomorrow. That's in the yellow shade. It's non-hatched, so this is not a significant chance, but we do have a 10% chance that is currently in effect for tomorrow for areas of southern New Hampshire and Vermont. And the 5%, that's when you're in the brownish red shade. That does include a little bit more of a narrow area, not in the same area as the entire slight risk, but that does include areas of far eastern New York State, and then it does include the entire state of Vermont and New Hampshire, and then a little chunk of western Massachusetts. And then finally, in the 2%, that's the green shade, that's for the surrounding areas of that. That does include New York City, that does include Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Newark, New Jersey, and Buffalo, New York. So, New York. All right, so there is it's not like a non-existent chance, but there still is a very low-end chance for a tornado or two outside of the main risk areas, but definitely a 2% chance for a tornado in the green shade is supportive of a possible tornado or two out there. All right, and so if you look at the wind threat, we do actually have a 30% inside the enhanced risk area. That's in the red shade, that's a 30% risk. Yellow shade, you're up to a 15% risk, and in the reddish brown shade, you have a 5% risk. And then tomorrow's damage hail threat not very high, but you do have a 5%. That's pretty much for all the interior Northeast, and then it also does include areas of a separate area here that does include northwestern North Dakota and northeastern sections of Montana. All right. And then day 3, things will probably wrap up, but you do have another slight risk. This one now going out for areas of northern Minnesota and northern Wisconsin. I mean, you guys in Wisconsin, I feel bad for you. The upper Midwest has been absolutely slammed by severe weather lately, but yes, you have another slight risk. This does include a hatched 15% probabilistic chance for severe weather, so I do expect this to have a chance to go upgraded, so we'll have to watch this in the next coming days. But let's go over to the breakdown of this northeastern event because I mean it's pretty interesting when you have a 10% tornado threat and an enhanced risk, but for areas of southern Vermont and New Hampshire, right? So this is what was happening today. You can see, as we get through the rest of tonight, we have a little cluster of storms out here into areas of New Jersey, southern New England, also into northern PA, into southern New York State, just south of the Finger Lakes region. But you can see these storms will kind of fizzle out as we see, the night kind of roll over. All right, and then we get into tomorrow morning. This is very early tomorrow morning. Look at the surface low that's continuing to push off to the east. It's really making its way off to the east pretty well here. And we already do have a pretty nice bunch of some showers and thunderstorms moving through upstate New York. But this is not the beginning of your event. We're only at 6 a.m. We have to look for a little bit more of a discreet looking storm setup. And you see these little showers and thunderstorms. Once we get the lower level jet kicked in, these storms are going to explode because you have a ton of rich moisture kind of just layered in here. All right, anywhere inside this like squiggly line, you have a ton of rich moisture. Okay, and it kind of narrows down to this area, which is in the enhanced risk. So these pop-up showers are going to continue to move on, and slowly but surely, once they hit these squiggly line regions where you have the really just rich moisture, they're going to boom, explode with convection, and we're about to see that here on the NAM. Still, it's 12 p.m., so we're still not at the peak heating for your daytime, but you still see those showers and thunderstorms move through, and then boom, there you go. Right, you get a little bit of a line of storms that's starting to move through northern New Jersey. You got a little event going on in northeastern PA, but still nothing too crazy in Vermont and New Hampshire. But you do get a little bit of a line of storms. I guess not a line of storms, but you do get a little cluster of storms. But you see how like discreet this environment is. Like there's just so much room for these to rotate. And remember, just because you don't see that much activity doesn't mean that you're going to see nothing. This is not like a future radar model. This is just a very high resolution model. This is not predicting what the future radar is going to look like at 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Okay, this just predicts what, what our possible reflectivity is going to, kind of look like. Not exactly like our radar, but definitely like kind of what, what kind of setup we're going to be dealing with. I just want to make this clear that this is just not exactly what the future radar is going to look like at this time, 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. This is not exactly what it's going to look like. It's just somewhat, it's going to be somewhat, similar to the setup that we're going to see tomorrow, if that makes sense. But anyways, you get it at 5 p.m. and you have a nasty line of storms that's kind of moving through southern Connecticut, throughout Long Island. I would watch out if you're in, Nassau County, if you're out in Suffolk County, if you're in Long Island. But I mean, this would definitely be producing some damage wind gusts. I mean, you look at sounding. We'll take a look at sounding. I mean, you have a very, very intense, just level of just rich moisture. I keep saying intense and blah blah blah. It's just because the Northeast is going to be loaded with moisture for such a limited time that it's just something that you really want to make sure everyone understands, because this is not normal for the Northeast. It's not supposed to be this humid, but that's what we got. And you can see, we have a lot of instability, so this is a decent sounding for like a damaged wind gust threat out there on Long Island, southern Connecticut. I would watch out for that. Definitely a few pop-up storms out there into the Delmarva area, but I would definitely watch out I-95 corridor. So far, we don't have the highest threat for severe weather, but this could definitely increase. All right, so I would watch out for a severe storm or two, isolated severe storms in this region tomorrow evening. That's definitely a possibility, so please be sure that you are staying weather aware. But look at this. I mean, you have some cells that are starting to move through southern sections of Vermont, New Hampshire. But I mean, the NAM just isn't really. It's not showing that like that hour where you like like this is the hour that the model is showing for severe storms. Like you can't point it out. All right, but I mean, we can check for sounding here. Let's look at this one cell. I mean, the low level rotation isn't too crazy. So we're gonna look at the HRRR with the significant tornado parameter, and that's gonna help us. But I mean, you just see a lot of isolated cells that you can't pick one out and just say like, "Ooh, this one looks like it's gonna be a tornado producer." You just see a lot of cells that all have an equal chance at producing a tornado or whatever threat of severe weather that you've got. But I'll just say that if you're back here into the interior Northeast, you're talking about a tornado threat, damaging wind gust threat. I mean, pretty much an all hazards severe event looking likely for you guys tomorrow evening if you're in the interior Northeast. If you're on the coastline here along the I-95 corridor, you're in a spot that's kind of just a question mark, like between like a kind of high risk, like a kind of uh high risk, but also in between a pretty high risk, like a pretty decent risk. Not obviously not like a level 5 out of 5 risk, but you get what I mean. All right, and then if you're in here, you're talking about like just I don't know. At this point, it's just such a question mark too. There's a lot of different question marks that will be answered by tomorrow morning, but we're gonna still look at more model guidance to get through. But we get into tomorrow night, and we don't really see any. Once again, we don't see any event that really shows us like, yeah, that's definitely going to be the hour and the storm that's going to be producing tornadoes. But I mean, you just get a very big, widespread severe weather event in the Northeast, which will definitely be a severe weather outbreak. Or I guess not definitely, but definitely a very significant severe weather event. All right, and so we're gonna look at now just our dew points here. You can see, I mean, I just wanted to show you guys how crazy and how crazy moist this environment's going to be. But I mean, as of right now, it's just loaded. Like if you had any, storm activity, it's just going to pop off out here. You can see along the coastline, we're talking about a sticky, muggy, gross 70-degree dew point here across Long Island, southern New England. So the coastline is, built for severe weather and just for storm activity and convection all night, through tonight and then into tomorrow afternoon. But you can see even the interior Northeast well into the 70s for your dew points. That's considered off the charts and just insanely, rich with moisture. And you can see this is an area I would watch. This does include an area I believe that is in the enhanced risk and the 10% tornado threat. But this also does go down to like the Boston area, into also like Connecticut, into Rhode Island, but also into like sections of central and western Mass. You do see this little area of some higher dew points. I would watch out for just potentially stronger storms in general, just because of how rich that moisture is going to be. It's going to be a lot of storms that are going to be looking for just the highest dew points possible to keep going. But I mean, overall, it's just going to be a huge setup here with just crazy intense moisture, just a absolutely loaded atmosphere for severe weather in the Northeast tomorrow. But this entire area is at risk, and it's mainly because of just how crazy moist it's going to be, the air. But you can also see, we'll switch this over to our 700 millibar. We'll look at, you know what? No, let's look at the 700 millibar vertical velocity. All right, so this is actually going to be some updraft here. We're going to look at updraft. I mean, you could see, just a lot of isolated spots of possible spin, and also a lot of updraft. So, you just get it. You get the idea, just that we're going to see some very intense storms tomorrow that will be severe in the Northeast. And finally, this is what we want to look at. This is why we have a high tornado threat. We're going to look at the HRRR significant tornado parameter. This is the model that just pinpoints for us where the highest tornado threat's possibly going to be, just off of model guidance. And here we go. We take this out to tomorrow, and here's that cluster of storms. It's moving through, and yeah, you do get up to, one or a two, but it's nothing crazy on the significant tornado parameter. But boom, look at this, up into northern Vermont. All of a sudden, you get up to a 3.8. That's a 4. We just flashed 4 here, 4.7, 4.6. All right, you're about midway through up the scale, okay? So you have a pretty decent chance for seeing a tornado if you're in northern Vermont tomorrow afternoon. So you just got to be weather aware. But you could see, we on the HRRR we do get a signal for a potential tornado and a higher end tornado threat inside of the enhanced risk area. So to be honest with you guys, I really like the HRRR a ton more than what the NAM 3K model was showing. So if I were you guys, if I were you and you wanted to take a look at model guidance and just predict what area may actually have what specific area may actually have the highest chance for seeing a tornado tomorrow, I would honestly go with the HRRR because you saw the NAM really just was struggling to pinpoint an area with a well defined tornado threat. But you could see these little bubbles here, these little bubbles that look like upticks in the significant tornado parameter. These are supercells that have the chance to produce tornadoes just based off of the HRRR, and you can see one here into central New York, all right, up into Vermont, New Hampshire. So it's nothing too crazy. You obviously don't max out the scale, but you definitely get up there pretty high on the scale. And that's why we don't have a 10% hatch tornado threat. We just have a 10%. All right. So nothing too crazy tomorrow, but definitely a few isolated tornadoes are possible in this circled area. And I would really watch for changes in the forecast. So we're going to see what happens by tomorrow morning. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for coming to watch. I will see you guys in the next video. So stay tuned. And I'll give you guys more updates on what's going to be happening severe weather wise in the future. Obviously, with future events, but I think that this will probably be the last update I'm going to do on the Northeast event, but I will be experiencing some storms tomorrow and maybe perhaps a severe thunderstorm tomorrow, so I will give you an update on the storms near me, but obviously, if something major happens, I will be sure to give you guys a little graphic on my community tab that you can check out tomorrow, just for, possibly a major change in the forecast or whatever. All right, but keep in mind, just tomorrow, be weather aware that there is a chance for tornadoes in the Northeast. So, like the video if you liked it. Please consider subscribing to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video.